Virginia here with Jenny Lee Gems. Today I am going to show you how to create a macrame harness around a gemstone cabochon for the purpose of making a pine needle basket. So the first thing you need to do is measure your gemstone, measure the circumference of the gemstone, because we are going to wrap the harness around the circumference. So I am going to use this little mat that I use it with little measurements on it, little tape that I use for my wire wrap. So I just put it down, start at the beginning, roll it along to measure the circumference, and I've got 4 inches. So I know to get all the way around this, I'm going to need a 4-inch long harness. So next thing we need to do is, we know that this is 4 inches around, so we have to figure out how much we need for worker wires and filler wires. So these are considered the filler rope or string. I'm calling it wire, but the filler rope. So this is 4 inches. We need 4 times that. So we need 16 inches on either side. So 16 inches on the left, 16 inches on the right. So what I did was cut 32 inches for our filler wires. Okay, so then you also need the worker rope or wires or string, whatever you're using. So then you need 4 times the 16 inches here. So 4 times that amount for the filler wire. You need, you're going to be using a lot of string for the worker because you're going to be going back and forth and create this pattern. So just make sure you have ample there because you don't want to be tying knots or anything like that. So this was 16. I used 32. So 4 times 16 is 64. So I would cut a 64-inch length for the worker string. So obviously if you have a smaller cabochon, so this is a 3-inch. So 3 times 4 is 12. And then you would go 12-inch, 12-inch, or cut it a little longer and tie it through with your binder clips or however you want to hook it up. So then you would need, say, 36-inch worker wire. So to make a little loom, or however you want to tie this up, I just used binder clips and hooked it on this beading loom that I had. You can hook your binder clips up to, say, a pegboard or whatever you have that you can use that you could tie your filler wires to. So this works well because I can tighten it up. I can move these dowels and tighten it up. And so that's what I'm using. But anything that you have at home that you can use to mount something to, that you can, put your filler wires on. So now we've got our cabochon. We know it's 4 inches around. So we're going to have to create a harness at least 4 inches that we can stretch around and encompass this gemstone so we can create a pine needle basket around it. So then you have your worker rope, string, wire, whatever you're using to create your harness. So I'm using this bright pink. It obviously isn't really a match to this gemstone, but I'm using the bright pink because I think it's easier for you to see. And I got this hot pink for free, and I was like, what am I going to use that color for? But it comes in great for training. So fold your worker wire over or your worker rope over about 4 inches. Just leave a nice long tail there, 3-4 inches. And then you are going to create a little loop. You fold it over, you've got a little loop. Come from the back, and I'm going to try to keep my fingers out of the way. Come from the back and have the loop come up over and pull the 2 threads through. So obviously you're going to have this long tail and it's going to be kind of a pain. Pull it through and you're kind of creating a lark's head knot there. So then take your tail, you can cut it off if you want. I don't cut anything till I get further along in a project, so I tape it. I always tape the tails somewhere and just hold on to them. If, you know, if things loosen up and you need to tighten them, you have that tail to work with. So I got to watch this that it doesn't loosen up anymore. Okay, so here we go. We're starting on the left side of the filler. Okay, now we've got our worker, and this guy's loose because this tape's not very good. It's cheap tape from the dollar store. Oh well. Let's just put it around here and hope it stays. I like it out of the way, or I start pulling more and more things in the way. Okay, so next we've got the 1 loop. So now we're going to go under the filler wire and then up and over and pull your tail through. I will try to keep my hands out of the way, but so there you've got like a little lark's head knot. Okay, so then we are going to go over to the right side of the thread. Okay, now we need to go under. So the sequence is under, over, then you switch sides, under, over. So here we're going under, and then we're going to go over with our worker thread. Snug it up there a little bit. And then you got to be careful here because I had this habit of going over the top and it messes up the look of it. So under, and obviously my thread is a little bit shorter because I don't want it tangling while I'm trying to teach you to do this. And then over. And pull your longer thread through. Okay, snug that up. Then go back to the other side. See, I end up on the top, but I want to go under. I pull it all the way through and then over again. So we're starting the same pattern on the left side, my left. Okay, so you got that there. Then you've got to do the second sequence on this side. So go under, and I always hold a little loop there. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then pull it through and snug it up. I pull it through when it's loose and then snug it up. Okay, so you can see the pattern starting to take shape. So now let's get this back under because we have to go under and then over. Pull the string through. So this is going to be a bit difficult when we get to the longer strings. So now see, as you're working, this tends to loosen up. So you're going to have to keep fixing it. So now we need the second sequence on the right side. So we're going to go under again and over. So this harness is very far apart. This is just a training harness. And I'm doing bright threads, just doing the best so you could see my hand movements and see how it starts taking shape. So if you could see down here, I just did some of the hand movements to add to the video, but this is correct down here. You see how it's crisscross down there. It's got the X type thing. This is straight across. I was going on the top. That's wrong. That's correct. Okay, so we just did the right hand side, so we've got to do the sequence on the left. So go under Let me get my thread back under there first. So under and then over. If you have little fingers, it's probably a little bit easier to do. Okay, so snug it up. This goes really slow till you get the hang of it. It took me a bit. I kept knotting stuff up. So under again. So remember, that's a two-part sequence on either side. So here's the second part, and you could see how that sort of lark's head or buttonhole is forming there. And just snug it up. So that's pretty tight. That's going to be thick, obviously, for this stone. I might use it anyway, just as a demonstration, but I'm thinking I'll make another. See why I like this taped? Because it gets in the way. Okay, so now we're back over to the right side of our fillers string. So under, and then we're going to go over. Maybe we're going to go over here. We're going to go over and pull it. Gosh darn, I've got slippery hands. Okay, and then we have to do the second sequence. So we're going to go under. I can't imagine if I'm doing a smaller harness how I'm going to get my fingers through there. And then we're going to go under. And then we're going to work that up and pull it snug. Okay, and then we're going to go under. And then over. We're going to pull it up. See how it creates that little under, over, and then you need another one. So you're going to go under. And I just kind of pull it through there. I keep the loop. I hold the loop with my finger. Just makes it easier. So if you're working with this waxed thread, it does get a bit gooey because your hands are getting warm, and so the wax starts coming off. But see how clean that looks? And of course you're going to snug everything up, and that'll hold it really well. So I'll do a few more hand movements, and I videotaped some other hand movements, so the more you see it, the easier it will be. So under, over, and sometimes my fingers get in the way and you can't see, so it's good to watch it a few times. Under, over. Okay, then we're going to go under again. And then I hold that little loop there, and then we go over. And we're now way down on the bottom. So there you have it. Back up. Okay, under, over. Okay, there's the first sequence on the left side. I'm just trying to make sure it's all nice and snug so we don't have a wobbly harness. Okay, then we're going to go under again. And like I said, I hold that little piece there. It just makes it easier. And then pull the tail through. Okay. That's looking good. I'll do a few more. If you got it, you don't have to keep watching. You can just move on to the next. But for those that need to see it a few times and practice it, like I had to. So under, over, on the right. Okay, then under. And if I go from the top instead of under, I'm going to know right away because you could see what it looks like. It looks funky. It doesn't match up, of course. And over. And I'm grabbing my stuff over here. Okay. And this will be the last one. I'll go back over to the left. But it's looking real clean. Tighten this up a little bit. So it's getting a little thinner as it goes towards the middle. But you got to try to keep these the same width. I have that problem when I am weaving wire as well. it keeps wanting to go thinner. So under and then over, whatever way you can get your fingers in there. I'm thinking maybe if this thread was a little bit closer, I would be able, so I might mount this clip here and it would stay the width that I need it. So, okay, that's the first sequence, under, over. Now we're doing the second sequence on the left. And if you stop and come back to it, a lot of times you're like, what the heck was I doing? Just look at the video again. Okay. So I'm going to move this over here so I remember to start under. So there you go. Looks pretty clean. Ideally, I would want this thinner, but I'm going to keep going with this because it's easier to see on the video. So here's the other one I was videotaping. Here's the correct. Here's the incorrect. See how those are crossing over? So when you fold that over the gemstone, it's really going to hold it in there. Good. It won't be able to fall through the loops or anything. Okay, so hopefully you got that. 4 inches times 4 inches for the 2 filler threads, wires, whatever you're using. If you're doing a 3-inch, it's 3 inches, and then 4 times 3 inches, and then 4 times that. Okay, which would be 36, I believe. So just make sure that this will be easy to get long enough. These filler wires will be easy to get long enough, but make sure your worker wire is long enough because you don't want to get halfway down and be like, oh God, I got to add another wire. How am I going to hide that knot in there? And I don't know that there's any way that you can. So at any rate, I'll show you the next step shortly. Okay, I think I've completed 4 inches. I've measured it out. And let's just roll it and see if it's pretty close. I think that it is. Yep. And this is pretty. You can kind of work with it and move it out a little bit. And I did. I opened it up a little more. So you'll recall with the demo that I was showing you, it was on these larger binder clips. Well, this is a little bit too big, I think, for this gemstone. The harness would just be too big and it would cover too much of the stone. So I did set up again with smaller binder clips and work with those. And I did space these out a little further than on the original clip. So we're just about ready to take it off. But one thing I wanted to mention is the tail. So you need a tail because you're going to have to tie things together when you take it off your loom or whatever you're using. And I measured out 64 inches of the worker thread, and I used almost every bit of it. So just wanted to say, be very careful. Make sure you measure more thread than less. Do the 4 times, 4 times, and that should work fine. So here's the difference between the large binder clip. So if you have a larger stone, say 3 inches or something, I think a large binder clip or something bigger like that would work. But for purposes of this 3-4 inch stone, a smaller binder clip, or even smaller than that if you're doing a 3 inch. So that's just something I noticed, and the spacing also, because the look you're going to get is spaced out a little bit further. Okay, so now I'm ready to remove the harness and get it ready to put around the cabochon. So I'm going to go ahead and untie it. I've got pieces all taped up. Tie it in there. I don't remember if I even tied it in there. Okay. So let's take it off this part. You'll remember I taped that tail down. I don't like to cut the tail off too short because I figure we're gonna need it at some point. So let me get this off of here. How do I get it on there? Off camera. There we go. Okay, so we don't need that anymore. So I just have to open this up and get it out of here now without messing it up. I guess I didn't think that one through too good, did I? There. So you recall when I set it up, I measured out what I needed and then put it in half through. So we have a way to tie it on this end. We have several ways to tie it on this end. Okay, so let's check and see if it's gonna fit first before I cut anything and see what it's gonna look like. So this is quite a bit better, I think, than that larger one I made. It is covering the stone and the pink is bright, but that's okay because this is just a practice one. So from what I understand, I am supposed to tie, I'm leaving everything together before, I'm not gonna cut anything. I'm panicky about cutting things, so I'm going to use this one, and it says to tie maybe I can make it about the same. I'll cut it a little bit. So it says to tie a square knot. So over like that. Let's get it down closer. And we're supposed to just tie the back first. So according to Nancy's book, make a square knot. So there you go, and you've got a square knot. Then you are supposed to put the stone in and make sure it's going to cover it. So nothing's going to come loose because I have everything tied. Make sure it's going to fit. Yeah, that looks like it's going to fit. Might have to move these around a little bit, but it looks like it's gonna work perfectly. So the back is tied. Oops, it's a little too tight. Let's get this needle out. So we're supposed to tie this in a square knot and then mark the center. Now, I don't want to mark it with a black pen or anything, so I'm going to just put a needle where the middle would be because I'm not sure why we need to know that, but I'm sure I will find out. So I didn't tie this part tight enough, so I'm going to go back and redo that square knot. Okay. Redo the square knot at the back. Here's my little harness. I'm going to use this rope. I suppose I could cut this and use this rope, but I'm going to use the longer one. So tie the harness in a square knot. So here's a square knot. Oh, we did the bottom already. So here's the top of the square knot. Okay. Then we put our gemstone in there. I assume that's the back and this is the front. So that works just about perfect. But I do need to tighten. So then we're going to, let's just pretend we're tying the front. So then we are going to tie the front and put our gemstone in there. Nice and snug. I'm going to do the little knots off camera. So I will tie it up, move these around because I've been playing with them, and get it nice and tight. And then I'll show you a picture. And then we're going to hook our pine needle basket up to here. So let me get these knots all tied nice and snug. And I think this is a great size. I'm glad I used the smaller binder clips. And I'll show you what it looks like when I get it all tied up off camera. There's too many little tails and knots here. It's looking pretty good, I think. What do you think? Okay, guys, I got it all tied up. So here it is. It's looking really good. This is the first one that I've done with this harness stitch, or some people call it the Margarita stitch or butterfly stitch, I've heard it called. So at any rate, everything is covered. I tied off the ends off camera because it was hard to do and without you having to watch me mess with it. And then I attached them to a needle and then worked the ends down in here, clipped those off. Just want to make sure they were nice and tight. So it is a little rough to work with because there's so much wax on the thread, and then this is like almost glass. It slides around a bit, but I think it looks really good. There's definitely a lot of room to attach your pine needles and thread to. So you could see one of the stitches is tucked in there, but once you add your pine needles, it's not going to show. So one of the good things I liked about this thread is it's super waxy, so it does move around, and you know, tying it up here, it still allows you a little play room down here, and you can adjust your stitches according to how you want to attach them so they're nice and even. So that's what it looks like. And I think it might be a little easier to do on a bigger stone, say this. I think it's a Wonder Stone, and it is thick, so you probably wouldn't have much problem with it breaking or something if it got dropped. I'm kind of paranoid, and I like to put my stones in resin or glue them on the back. But these thicker stones, I've seen people like Barbara Osborne does this stitch impeccably. She's going to be teaching it, in fact, at the Convergence, I believe. But these thicker stones, I think it would be safe to do with. That'd be a big one. But try it and see what you think. I think my first one came out pretty good, but it takes a bit of getting used to, I think, to do it. But it's fun to learn something new, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So one thing I would say is when you are starting your harness, make sure to leave at the top some extra room here. So on mine, it was a smaller harness. When I cut it in half, there wasn't a lot of play room there to tie. I was able to tie it off, but it would just be easier if you had a little more thread there at the end. That's just you know, I just hate to see you get at the end of your rope and not have enough rope to save yourself. So there you go. I hope this helps, and I will try it again on another stone because I think I will get better and better at it, but I certainly want to try attaching pine needles to this. And I know the pink isn't all that beautiful on this dark green, but at least you can see it better. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.